Yo, here we go. We are in the house once again, early. I don't even know who's awake at this point, but it's great to see you guys. This is the breakfast sunrise edition, sunrise service for the way forward. And we are groggy eyed, but you know what? We are convinced that we still need to do this show today, even though both of us have crazy busy schedules. We're coming on today because this is too important a topic for us not to get into today. And after last week's pew, 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 fireworks, we are coming back again. And we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning, Erskine. It's almost like watching one of those old Chinese karate films with you right now.
I got to get this. I got to fix our house. Our house is not in order.
It's I'm fine with it. I've just learned to roll with it. But it was interesting to watch you say all that, and then kind of I'm waiting for Bruce Lee to like pop in and do something crazy.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know if anybody watches those anymore. I don't even know where you could find. I guess you could YouTube those, but I used to love those as a kid. I never understood what the plot was on those.
No.
And then I got older and I realized there is no plot.
There's no plot.
You just walk the earth, and then every once in a while somebody wants to fight you.
Right.
And I guess that made sense as a boy, because that was kind of my years growing up. Like every once in a while I'd walk around school and then, hey, look, there's a fight today. All right, let's go.
That's right. That's
so
right.
It was that sort of thing.
People up. Yeah. No, I used to watch him. Him and Chuck Norris had a little more of a plot, you know.
He would.
He would have a little more of a plot, but you always know how it's going to turn out, though. I mean,
yeah, you knew who was going to get worked.
There was no surprises there. But yeah, those are great. They don't watch TV like that anymore.
Yeah, I know. So we're going to get into some reactions to the Derek Chauvin decision. Put some of that up there in the show notes for today. But before we get to that, we normally talk about sports. I guess we'll intermingle some of that in with some of the LeBron James comments a little bit later on. But before we do that, we're going to, maybe if it's okay with you, Jason, we can skip the sports today and just go straight to Humpty Hump, man. What's going on in this world?
I told you, man. I was a little sad yesterday. Shock G. I was rolling with him like what, 1989, 1990, something like that. 1991, when the new hip hop was coming out. He was hilarious and cleaner than say like Two Live Crew, you know.
You think so?
Yeah. But his opening lyric always stuck with me. And as soon as you heard it, you know exactly who it was and where it was in the Humpty Hump.
The voice, yeah.
And just stop what you're doing, because I'm about to ruin the style and the image that you're used to.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, yeah, that's Humpty.
It's your chance, do your dance, the hump, do the Humpty Hump. So we're here.
I didn't know that he collaborated with like Tupac. He kind of put Tupac on the map a bit. I was reading some stuff on him. I didn't realize how influential he was on Tupac, and on several others that he had produced and written for and stuff. I just thought he kind of faded away, you know, and here he was behind the scenes. But yeah, man, that's prime. Let's see, it's like 7th grade, junior high type years where Shock G was
for us.
Digital Underground, yeah, for us.
For us, it was.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to make mention of the fact that we are on Facebook Live on both of our pages, church page and then also my page, and then we're also featured on YouTube for the audience that's there, so you guys can make comments from all of those different venues, and then anywhere else where you guys are listening, you guys can make comments this morning. The comment section is turned on. We appreciate you guys joining us this morning. Jump on and say quick good morning if you're out there and you're listening. I know it's a little bit earlier than what we normally do. We had to do it this way today because both of us have some crazy busy schedules, but we didn't want to miss the opportunity to join with you guys. Next week, we'll be doing this or at least I'll be doing this from Pennsylvania. And so we will be subject to whatever um, internet they have there in the hotel. Although I figured out some things on our last broadcast last week about how you can rig up some things in the hotel to make the show work. So looking forward to a couple of good broadcasts, and we've got some interviews that are out there that we're going to get to, and so we're going to get some of that edited, get that into the show next week. But you don't want to miss this week as well. So Humpty Hump, Shock G reactions before we get to the Derek Chauvin verdict reactions. If you're sad, if you're out there going, who in the heck is Shock G?
Come on.
I was literally in the studio.
If you're a Gen Xer, Gen Xer, you know Shock G in the Digital Underground.
Yeah, you know Shock G. Come on. Don't try to act like you don't know Shock G.
Even if you weren't in the early hip hop days, that song was all over the place. I mean,
it was.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, it was classic.
Which is pretty awesome, because I've been in the studio all week and we've been working on a couple of new songs for me, and it's amazing, like all the variety of sounds that you have access to. And like we go through the process of working for hours to find the right sounds to go into these songs, and usually it's the most memorable songs are the ones that have sounds that don't even seem like they belong in the song.
Yeah.
What was that Aaliyah song years ago that had the baby?
Yeah.
The baby sound bite in it.
Yeah.
Like every time you heard that, you were like, what? I don't think that sound goes in there, but it makes you want to listen.
Yeah.
So there's a certain
art been working on Something for You, but he's come up with a clever rendition of Our God by Chris Tomlin.
Who is that?
Ethan.
Oh, he has he?
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah, he's in the lab.
I was impressed with what he come up with and how he put it together. I said, you got to shoot this over to Erskine and let him listen to it.
Well, definitely, because I would like to start my concerts with that rendition. Yeah,
so it's good. I liked it. I said if for some reason Erskine can use it, we'll find a way to use it, because it was good.
Yeah, no. Put his beats to work.
Yeah,
put his skills to work out there.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
All right, my man. What are you preaching tomorrow?
So this is the second part of a baptism of the Holy Spirit.
Man, you guys,
we jumped into Acts 19,
powering up your spiritual lives out there,
and of course,
baptism of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, and so Paul asked this question: did you receive the Holy Spirit? He's asked it before in Acts 8 and Acts 11, and so there seems to be this kind of second experience or something, or this second blessing type thing happening. Well, in our area, in Litchfield, Pentecostal theology is all over the place, and so we have some disagreements with our Pentecostal brothers and sisters.
What's wrong with the Pentecostals?
So we're explaining, what the baptism of the Holy Spirit is, and now we're in the second part of it is, the Spirit empowered life. What does it look like, and things like that. So we're kind of piggybacking off of Acts 19, so we can get into a deeper discussion. And it's relevant. It's good. I've enjoyed it. Just thinking about it more. I actually had some wonderful conversations. I had a guy who was happening to be watching the sermon on Facebook, and I have a kind of a vicarious connection to him through his sister, and we spoke for like over an hour because he comes from a Pentecostal background, and he called me up and wanted to talk about it. Very friendly, very cool, and I've had some other discussions with it, so it's been good. It's been a good study. But yeah, we don't land necessarily where some of our Pentecostal friends land. So,
okay, you and that charismatic chaos going on in Litchfield.
And the ironic thing is, Erskine, is I'm probably more charismatic than most of my Baptist friends. So I'm kind of caught between two worlds in some ways.
That makes you a perfect candidate for this show. Let's see. You're a perfect candidate for this show if all your conservative friends get ticked off by you, and all your progressive friends get ticked off by you.
That's
You're
right.
a perfect candidate for this show.
Right.
Come on.
That's right. You can't seem to land on either camp too hard. So yeah. Yep.
Well, we are headed to the discussion of the day. Let's get into this before we do anything else. And again, the comment section is turned on. Thank you guys, the little 4 or 5. I see your eyeballs out there. I'm looking right at you. 4 or 5 people who are sneakily watching us out there, and literally probably some folks from all over the world. And so thank you guys for joining. Some of you guys, I understand from recent weeks, like you can't comment because that would let people know where you're at. So yeah, don't comment. You just keep watching. We're going to get into a discussion here. I've got a New York Times article that I wanted to read some from, but sir, Jason, pastor, bishop, author, speaker, doctoral candidate, I'll let you go first with your first reaction today. Fire the first shot.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a mixed reaction to it. Guilty was the right verdict, and I think that was a consensus all around. Derek Chauvin crossed some serious lines, and there needed to be repercussions for it. And I don't think anybody would argue with that. The only two concerns I had was I had a hard time seeing the second-degree murder charge stick. Was really curious, as I've been doing some research on that, how that one stuck. And then the other problem I had was as I began to listen to comments about things, especially as the president has weighed in on it, and of course Maxine Waters weighed in on it, and several others, that the justice system is becoming even more politicized than it already is. And
Sure.
I began to wonder when future juries now go in to deliberate over this, they're not only going to have to carry the burden of providing justice in these cases, but they're also going to have to carry the burden of keeping the community safe. And I think that crosses serious lines in our justice system.
Yeah, that's good analysis there.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of people, well, I wouldn't say a lot of people. Good morning, Mayashi, who responded by simply saying that even if it wasn't the right decision, they were glad that a decision was made so that people aren't tearing up the world, burning America down.
Yeah.
And that's a weird thing we'll probably get into also, that kind of dovetails with what you're saying with the whole politicization of jury and verdict and justice system, and the commingling of those two things. The facts of the case, those are what is to be considered, not the facts of the case and how the community is going to respond to the situation. And so yeah, that does put a weird kind of hue or glow over the whole situation, but I'm not sure what you do about that at this point.
Yeah, well, when you have the president of the United States weigh in on something, or any local, I mean, even national leaders, and the media makes assessments so fast. I don't know. I'm thinking about, so there's going to be another cases on the docket. I mean, just what happened in Columbus, right?
Well, yeah, and the other 3 officers. Let's just stay with this case for just a moment. The other 3 officers, they're coming up as well.
Those juries who have to deliberate, they watched this. Those people who are going to be on the juries, every other American has watched what's happened, and I can guarantee you, inside of those discussions. So let's say I'm a jury member on the Chauvin trial, and let's say that I see the manslaughter charge, I see the third-degree murder charge, but I don't see the second-degree murder. I don't see how that worked out. How in the world? Because on a murder trial, you have to have a unanimous vote to convict. How in the world do you come to a place where your conscience is satisfied and you feel like justice is satisfied when maybe the 10 or 11 other members of the jury, their strongest argument against you is, if you don't convict on all 3 counts, Minnesota's going to burn. And instead of getting to the heart of the hey, wait, but what does the law say? And do we really want to set the standard? I don't know of anybody now who goes into a jury who doesn't carry that burden even more. Because had one person disagreed and they had to do a mistrial or do something else, the media would have come at that one juror as crazy as they're coming at other people.
Well, they remain anonymous, don't they?
No, they come out. I mean, they
Oh.
can come out. I mean, and the other problem is that's the other thing that I find troubling is they don't stay anonymous. People leak things. There is no ethics to this.
Well,
Like
yeah.
there is no ethics
We're in the
to
land of leaks.
that's exactly right. And so there is no protection. I mean, they're releasing people's addresses, they're releasing people's names, and so now these juries who come together to administer justice in some of the craziest cases um, are now burdened with not only justice but community safety and how the media is going to respond and the pressures of our politicians and how they're going to respond and I think we're in a bit of a world of hurt because
Yeah.
um,
Let me go
I
back.
don't think that's good for anybody.
Yeah, let me go back to something that you said because I wanted to kind of piggyback on that to, advance this discussion just a tad bit. Circling back to the president, vice president, notable political figures who are commenting on the case, and certainly everybody is entitled to their perspective on the situation. But here again, I want to be clear about the fact that we're on both sides of this. Presidents who weigh heavily into cultural conversation. We talked about that, Jason, you and I, with President Donald Trump, and sometimes how that was very unhelpful in the cultural commentary. And now here again, presidents who are weighing in. It's kind of one of those things where you almost can't not respond. Is that the right way to say it? I don't know. You can't just go silent on this issue. You've got to respond. However, I said on my show a couple of days ago, I feel like in these moments, the former president that we had, the statements that he may have made, and I don't know, because he's not president now to make these statements, but the statements that he may have made could have made the situation even worse. Like we're talking about some bad situations, but it could have been way worse. And I'm not saying that it was good. And so I'm processing that from the standpoint of saying, I mean, you hear this terminology, the lesser of two evils, but still evil. And I think that with regards to some of the statements that I've heard, and yet I think, I mean, maybe the Lord in some kindness is sparing us from just idiotic comments that President Donald Trump would often make in these very high profile, racially motivated cultural commentaries to kind of stoke the fires. And so like on the one end, you've got the media, like you were rightly talking about, and all these syndicates that are out there that are ready to leak stories and they're ready to respond and to create furor. On the other end, you've got the same thing on the conservative side that are ready to stoke the flames and to stoke the fires of some of these very high profile and tense situations. And so I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how you get away from that.
I think I don't mind the president responding or making a comment about a high profile cultural situation. But I feel like Biden's words were still not appropriate because he kind of led into a place that assumes the verdict has to be guilty, has to be. And whether I agree with him or not, right? Like and I think most of America, I think 78% of America agreed that the guilty is the right verdict. You don't want your political leaders, when in our justice system, you don't want them making that assessment like that. So I would have felt like his response should have been, hey, we're going to let the justice system work it out. I'm confident that when it's all said and done, this will take place. It's a stock answer, call it that. But the reason why it's a stock answer because it's a safe answer to allow the process to take place. But that's no longer acceptable in our culture. And the reason why I'm kind of belaboring it, it's another piece of evidence that we're living with foolish leaders. Like nobody's wise right now. Nobody's acting wise. Nobody is exercising some kind of discernment for the sake of wisdom itself and the safe community. Everyone's just kind of putting everything out there and letting us see how it rolls. And I would have thought that his PR people would have exercised more discernment, said, President Biden, it's appropriate for you to make a comment. Obviously, the nation's watching, but make sure that that the comment fits within a safe guidelines that protects our standard of justice and not politicize it. And
Yeah.
I mean, and then him, but Maxine Waters was probably the worst. I mean, she incited, like, keep stirring it up, keep being confrontational, keep being. I mean, that was just crazy. I was watching that come out of her mouth. I'm like, that's.
Now,
I mean,
you said something that I think is important for us to consider and for us to figure out, because this is the Way Forward show. For those of you who are watching us, we're both Christians who have various ministry platforms and opportunities to share the gospel. Mine primarily through music and evangelism, and then Jason's through pastoral ministry in Illinois. We're one in Illinois, one in Nashville. For those of you who are joining the show, don't know who we are. We've been friends for over, I don't know, almost
20 years, I think.
20 years or so.
Yeah.
And I know exactly where you were at 13 years ago yesterday, because it was adoption day for us and you were in the courtroom when we adopted our kids. And so I've got pictures of you 13 years ago with the kids and holding them in our arms. And so we've been friends for a long time. The conversation continues. We're both conservative-ish. But I will say this, back to that whole discernment issue, and there's a lot of people who are saying good morning to us. Good morning, good morning, good morning, Ed Neal. We're not trying to sneak away from other people. So for anybody out there who thinks, hey, you guys did the conversation early today so that you could sneak it by, that's not our intent and purpose. We just got a ton of things going on today. But going back to what you said, I think it's important for us to recognize you played sports, I played sports, you've coached, I've coached. You don't put bulletin board material up because it's going to be incendiary at some point, and it's going to lead in an opposite way of motivation. Like the coaches and the players that get up after the game and they give the stock answer like you were talking about. We played a tremendous team today. It really took all of our effort. Those guys are on the other side are great. We were fortunate to come out with a victory. That's the most boring answer, but that's sometimes the most appropriate answer.
Right.
And same thing here with the wisdom of our leaders. We're deeply concerned about the situation. Let's let the justice system play out. We trust that people will reach a verdict that is in the best interests of our country.
Yep. And if it doesn't, there's an appeals process. We will follow the process. Keep the authority of the process. Or, down the road, we know we can make reforms and changes, but and it wasn't just Biden, right? It wasn't just Maxine Waters. Of course, there have been all kinds of people on social media who have made comments who carry some kind of weight. We'll get into probably LeBron's comments about was it Micaiah, who was shot in Columbus, and just how influential these platforms are. Like, I sent you the text. There's 50 million people are following LeBron. Well, 48 million people are following the president, and I don't know how many millions of people are following these other folks. And so you put something out there, it reaches all over. And I just wish I would pray that we would have more discernment with how we use our words, and then how we uphold the American values system, justice system with our leaders. Even though I would agree with him that, Dr. Chauvin rightfully guilty, and he'll be going to jail. And it's unfortunate because George Floyd had to die. It's unfortunate this guy's going to jail. It's unfortunate he's no longer married. I mean, there's a lot of lives that are just gone right now. And that's a sad thing.
Now, I mentioned this on my show the other day as we talk about justice, we do understand this, and at least we should understand this, that especially as Christians, our worldview dictates that we respond, it dictates that we are involved in the scenario, it dictates that we, in some regards, are peacekeepers in the midst of very volatile situations. It requires us to speak truthfully and honestly in situations, and it requires us to understand that absolute 100% degree of justice can never be obtained in this
Yeah.
world.
Yep.
We need
Yep.
to understand that, and
Yeah.
we need to live in that space of recognizing that only the Lord can properly
Right.
and ultimately
Right.
administer the true sense of justice. Some of that was poured out, obviously, against the wrath against his own son on behalf
Yeah.
of sinners who would come to faith in Christ, the elect. And then also people will be bearing the weight of their own sin for eternity as a result of
Yeah.
their rejection of what the Father has done. And we need to be crystal clear about that. There's going to always be a conversation
Yes.
taking place in our culture in which people are saying, well, maybe it was 2 counts and not 3 counts, or maybe it was just one of those counts, or the degree was maybe too severe or less severe, or maybe we should appeal this, or maybe it's a mistrial. That's always a discussion that we're going to have, because human justice is not an absolute justice.
Right. Right. That is something for one of the things pastors can do for their churches, I think, is talk about their eschatology and the perspective that when Jesus comes back, justice will reign. That's one of the promises we get when he comes back to gather his
Mhm.
people, when he renews heavens and the earth, and we get to live with him. The beautiful and the glorious hope we have in Christ is that justice will roll, and it will be perfect, and it'll be good, and it'll bring peace, and that's our hope. That's what we look forward to in the resurrection, and that's what we look
Yes.
forward to. But until then, we need to exercise that justice as best we can, knowing we're in a broken world, a Genesis 3 fallen world, knowing that people are not going to get it right, and that God is going to even use that to draw us closer to Himself, and to long for Christ to come back.
And really, I'm glad that you gave some of those biblical categories. Eschatology would be the end times and how everything ultimately will end up. You also introduced the idea that, as we continue to live out, there is a sense of grace that is sort of given there, because we recognize our own limitations and our own faults, and we recognize the limitations of living in a fallen world.
Mm,
All of those things are important because they bring the nuance, the necessary nuance of, man, there's temperance here, there's forgiveness here, there's the
mm,
opportunity for us to look um, beyond this situation to other situations. There's the opportunity for us to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, how many
mm,
times have we missed the mark? How many times have we failed? All of us have sinned
yeah,
and fall short of the glory of God. And so there's that added level of grace, mercy, compassion that is not a part of our cultural discussion that we are having today. Cancel culture is, they're out in force
yeah,
to try to
yeah,
dictate things that are going on. And so we have a totally different worldview. We have a totally different starting place. We have a totally different ending place. We have a totally different modus operandi, if you will, or way of working through this situation than the world does. And I
yeah,
think it's far superior, far, far, and I know you do too, far,
yeah,
far, 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 far superior than what the world has in reference to how to make it through this life and what
yeah.
happens the next life.
And even if folks believe that maybe, whatever side of the camp you land on, there are those who might argue that Chauvin should not have been found guilty, um, or or other cases where you don't feel like justice has been properly wielded out. The hope of the Christian faith is that one day all things will be made just, either through the cross or through God's wrath and hell. And so you you find very quickly inside the Christian faith a place to stand on the rock when it seems like there has been an injustice. You don't have to go tear down the city. You don't have to go burn down things. You don't have to hate your neighbor. You don't have to divide your family. You don't have to hate on people. We know that at the end of the day, God's going to work this all out. We just have to
Yeah.
trust. And He'll do that. And that is definitely not. That's not a stock answer in the culture. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing a lot of that come from the church at this moment. I'm not seeing a lot of those comments from the church. I'd like to see more of my leaders present more of that to the world
Yeah.
than some of the other things.
Hey, really quickly here. Let's take a couple of comments from the folks that are here. I want to make sure that we interact with you guys. We got a lot of eyeballs that are watching us today. And if this is your first time joining the show, please know that there's about a 10-second delay. So between the time we say something, you get it back to us. Make sure, if it's directed at us, like, hey, Jason, you're an idiot. Let us know why he's an idiot. Or Erskine, you're an idiot. I talk about myself because I make some comments from time to time. That was not the right statement because of da. So we're clear about what it is that we're responding to. Had some issues with that last week and maybe not connecting on all points where we should have. So just help us be clear about some things. But I did want to go back to a couple of things that Ed Neal said that I think we need to respond to. Politicians and media need the unrest to continue to accomplish their socialist agenda. Well, I don't know how far down the spectrum and how well thought out the socialist agenda is, but I do know that there are people who feed off of perpetual conversations like this and unrest. I'll just put that out there. Even some religious leaders who enjoy that.
That unfortunately is both sides for sure. And as much as I would probably agree with his statement to some degree, I have to be willing to see that it is. I've seen conservative and church leaders stir the pot for the sake of keeping the issues up like that. And here's the thing that bothers me right now. I don't know if you've been paying attention to Veritas, and it's time to do. Okay, Bobby. My kids are now up, so
yeah. Well, the dog just came in, so Harriet joined the show this morning.
Yeah.
Hi, Harriet. Tell the audience hello. Look at Harriet. That's just what you need in the morning is a puppy. You definitely don't need a cat.
No,
right,
no cats.
No cats. No cats.
But CNN has been called out. I mean, I don't know how many times for the unethical journalism, the way they have made up stories even to come against things. In Veritas, this nonprofit kind of group that is kind of finding out this stuff, and yet CNN still is a voice in the discussion, and they're still putting out this nonsense, and people are buying it, and I just don't get how that still happens. And so, the media is pushing a narrative, a strong narrative of what they want, even going so far as making up stories and making up nonsense, as we saw last week with Veritas and CNN. So I don't trust anything that the media puts out. And I'm becoming even more cynical of my government leaders. So I don't want to be that way. I'm like, goodness gracious, I get it.
Hey, we got some new folks that are joining the show. I think Jason Dinme. I'm not familiar with that name. Hopefully I'm saying it correctly because my name is Erskine Adamatarte and people mess it up all the time.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'm saying your name correct. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But some different folks are joining the show today. I just want you to know, whatever perspective you come from this morning, you are welcome to comment on the show. We don't fight with anybody. We just get heated sometimes.
Yeah.
And I should make a comment about that. Some of the people that we actually do spend a little bit more time being back and forth with, they're people that we've known for a long time. And so we believe that kind of some of those relationships gives us a little bit of liberty. Like there's some people who will get out my case from time to time. When I say something I shouldn't, they'll smack my hand, be like, I can't say that. Shouldn't be saying that as a Christian man. And so I accept that because obviously they've known me for a long time and are looking out for my best interest. For those of you that I don't know, you're welcome to come at me as well. I probably won't come at you as aggressively just because I don't know. There's no context for us to like couch our relationship. And if I've met you at a show before, I've been at a church or a setting where you've been before, you can just remind me of that. Certainly want to be kind to everybody that's out there, especially those that we don't know as well. So welcome on the show. Doesn't matter what your perspective is, libertarian, progressive. You could be into conspiracy theories. It doesn't matter. Like this is a house of, we're all the island of misfit toys this morning.
That's good. That'll be our book, Island of Misfit Toys. It's good.
Yeah. Well,
Much of the legislative branch is coming for the. I actually agree with that, Jason. The whole the whole stocking the Supreme Court discussion that supposedly wasn't supposed to happen is now happening, and that's one of the ways you turn things around is you get a hold of the judges. And you know who's got some really good material on that is again Vodi Bachman has probably written extensively from a Christian perspective on that particular issue. He calls it the three P's, the no, or it's the three robes, the preacher, the professional teacher, and the judge. You get those three groups going, and you turn those, and you can turn society. You can turn different things. So if you want something more to read on, Jason, Vodi Bachman's got some stuff on that.
now is that in his book Fault Lines?
You know, I don't know. I got a lot of that from his lectures. He's on YouTube, and you can find his lectures on Marxism, cultural Marxism and the socialist agenda, that kind of stuff, in the church. He's been writing on this for a long time, and he just had is that the new book he just put out, Fault Lines?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd be willing to bet it's definitely something in there.
Yeah,
that's kind of been his thing.
I've got to get that book, and I've got to get that thing read soon.
Yeah.
Hey, Lisa. Hope you guys are doing well out there in East Tennessee. There's some folks who are totally agreeing with you, Jason. Totally agree. Until you say something stupid, then they're going to totally disagree with you. So
that's right.
That's fool's gold.
Fool's
Don't fall
gold.
for it. But no, you are making some really good points. Obviously, some things for us to pay. How is Vodi Bachman so smart? How does he?
Man, yeah,
know all this stuff.
He's one of the things he's done is he's analyzed the culture for the last 20 years, and he's just done a good job, I think. Of now, Vodi, you got to be careful with Vodi because Vodi can get you fired from your pastor's job if you're not careful, because he could have you like just calling up some crazy ideas. Because one, he's articulate when he writes. He's an even better preacher. I mean, when you hear him talk, he's this kind of massive presence, and he is smart. But one of the things he has done as for the last 20 years, I think he has been watching the culture, and he started watching these kind of cultural Marxist ideas begin to infiltrate into society in different places, and he's kind of kept his finger on the pulse of it. And now he's been able to kind of tell you, hey, look, well, this is what we've been watching, and this is where you can go. And like I said, you gotta drink sips with Vodi, just sips. Don't gulp.
Those of you out there who know who Vodi Bachman is, you know why we're saying take sips. You take sips of Vodi.
He's
take
a
some
hot
sips
cup
of Paul
coffee.
Washer.
Yeah. Vodi's a hot cup of coffee. You just want to sip it, enjoy it, and do your thing. Yeah.
And just a lot of the comments related to the legislative branch and just sort of this upheaval and overturning of sort of our legislative process here in America. I think hopefully most people will recognize how broken that system is now on both sides when we are trying to figure out how we can legislate the kind of things that we want to have happen in society, and then use circumvention and use branches of government in ways that they were not intended to be used for our political agendas. That's an issue.
Yeah.
And I think one that we highlighted when we were talking about the election process and what it means for Christians, especially, to engage in the cultural conversation by saying, I'm going to vote for somebody that I don't trust their character, and I don't believe a lot of things they're saying. I don't believe that they're maybe good in these areas, but because they would be able to get us the right kind of judges who ultimately are going to have to decide some of these cases so that we can get our agenda put forward. I'm going to tolerate this nonsense over here so that we can legislate these values over here. And again, I don't know how you get out of that situation because we are where we are, and it's not a good place.
Yeah. I think Brian's comment is interesting. This idea,
he's a history teacher.
Yeah, as appeasement. Yeah, I think that was part of my problem we talked about earlier when the jury goes back to deliberate. Um, they're not just carrying the burden of justice for the situation; they're having to carry the burden of the community and the safety, and appeasement plays into that. You know, I think he all well. I
Does
mean,
it though?
oh well, yeah,
Did it?
you have to appease because the idea is like he makes the point: guilty means less rioting and looting. Non-guilty would result in LA 1992, and
Right.
I
I'm
think
with you there. I'm with you. I'm
yeah.
with you, Jason. But I'm just simply saying, should it?
Well, no, it shouldn't. No, because it, again, I think Ed Neal was making the point that each branch is meant to kind of be a checks and balance for the other, right? Justice is supposed to be hands off to the politics. That it's supposed to be like judicial branch is supposed to be hands off to that because when you start politicizing justice, you lose justice at some point. And what we're seeing is the effect of politicizing justice now. So one of the comments that President Biden made was, well, I said my comment after they were already in deliberation, right? Well, the problem is he set the precedent now for the future jury deliberations because he's putting this out here. And now you have the executive branch speaking into the judicial branch unnecessarily, and it's not necessarily being helpful. So now that the future cases that come, again, that burden to walk in there is not just about being justice for the situation, but it's now to make sure we don't lose our community. You know, we don't have the riots of LA, or we don't have what's going on in Portland, or we don't have what's going on in Minneapolis. Now we have to do this, and I think that you know that appeasement to some degree, and then that fear is another one, and then of course just the ethics of my name might get leaked out in this and might get connected to being opposing. Cancel culture is already crazy, but when they start leaking your address and your family members, it becomes a safety issue. I'm telling you, I mean, justice is going up in smoke.
Yeah.
It's not going to be just about rioting and looting. It's going to be about the safety of our jurors. I mean, I don't have to go tear down a city if I don't agree with you now. I can find out where you live and just burn your house down or inflict some kind of other. Or if you get into the whole corporatocity or that whole totalitarianism that's happening among corporations, we can just cancel you out there.
Yeah.
Is it called doxing? Are you familiar with that? Where they release all of your information, like your banking stuff, and they can kind of just cancel you from that. I might be out of my pay grade there. I'm not as technologically.
Is there no limit? I learn about some new technique every week that people have to cancel folks.
And they actually have hackers who that's what they love to do. They like to find out who these people are, release their information, and do their thing. So
and let the culture devour them.
Yes, yeah. To which I hope the church, God willing, I hope the church just doesn't participate in any of that. Like that's just crazy.
Well,
even though you already made the point a few shows ago that canceling is actually out of our playbook. So,
ooh. Like Vodi Bakum says, if you can't say amen, you gotta say ouch.
Yep.
Hey, well, you're just a bed of sunshine this morning with all the things that are going on there. Got some really good comments from Jason this morning. Leaving those up there on the screen so you guys can all see those. Ed Neal's got some fantastic comments as well. The Eternal Kingdom, it only has an executive branch. He likes him some Chuck Missler. Do you listen to Chuck Missler? Or?
I haven't. No, I haven't listened to Chuck Missler.
Yeah, there might be some new names that we get on here in terms of people that we listen to. And so, man, it's on the one hand, there is just a incredible amount of people who are out there who are giving cultural commentary that is unhelpful. We're a land of folks who are unwise, a land of people who are motivated not by kingdom values, and that's by and large what it is that we're dealing with. Jason, what are some of the voices and directions that as a church we can begin to turn to as Christ followers, areas that we can turn that are guideposts of truth, guideposts of safety, guideposts of opportunity for us to advance the conversation in a positive manner? Or do we just kind of like the Rod Dreher Benedict option, just put our heads in the sand and just say it's all going to collapse around us? Let's just wait till it collapses, and then we'll come back out.
Yeah. So I might get myself in a little bit of trouble.
That's what we do on the show. Come on.
Yeah. But I think a voice we should listen to more often is Russell Moore from the ERLC.
Oh,
Yeah.
goodbye. All right. Jason's no longer on the show. Russell Moore. No, I'm just kidding. Just messing with you.
And here's one of the reasons why I have wrestled with Russell. I had him as my systematic 3 teacher in seminary, and he was also the vice president of the seminary when I was there for a short time. And I always knew deep down inside that Russell was kind of your old school liberal Democrat, politically, not. So when you think about liberal Democrat, you got to think back in the 60s and 70s, and his values.
He's a socialist.
Yeah, his values are conservative. He is gospel centered. Trust me, I've spent time with this man. He is all about Jesus. So there is no discussion. It's just some of his policies sometimes, and some of the things he would say just reminded me of this kind of big government type thing. And so I would wrestle with him, and I'd get annoyed. But I will tell you that when it comes to trying to find a bridge to balance between the church and the culture, and trying to be insightful and wise and operate a Christian worldview in this kind of crazy time, and to be fair, to call out nonsense on both sides, I think Russell's a powerful voice. And I like, as much as I'll kind of like chew with him a little bit and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I would say overall, that's somebody I would listen to. I read his stuff. I listen to what he says. He's got a pretty good podcast. And he is somebody I think the church, and I know that he has made a lot of SBCers upset, but I think a lot of those SBCers are so attached to the Trump kind of conservatism, Christian nationalism, that they're not really hearing exactly what he's saying. They're hearing sound bites of what he's saying. And I think you have to, again, take him as the whole picture. I also think at the same time, I think that Al Mohler Jr. is another one. I mean, if you get a chance to listen to the briefing, again, he's somebody who you could find yourself disagreeing with at times. You're kind of like, that's not a great analysis of things, or maybe I would lean
incomplete analysis, I think. Maybe incomplete analysis is where as far as I would go with Al Mohler. I love the briefing. He's just very doom and gloom.
He can be, yeah. And I think he's good overall. Again, and I think again, Bodie Bachman's another good one. And I think us too, you and I.
Oh, yeah! Look at that, Rusty Rust. Hey, we didn't come up on your level now.
Because, and here's what I like about us.
Tell Russell Moore.
Yeah, is I don't think you have to be like rocket scientists. I don't think you have to be amazingly brilliant to do what we're doing. I just think you have to have an investment in the church and the community and the home that is Christ honoring, Bible saturated, God glorifying. I want to use those kind of words. I think you also have to have a heart for reconciling people, and I think you also have to be willing to engage the conversation, let go of some of your agenda, embrace some things, hear some things you don't want to hear, and work through it. And I think any pastor who's worth their salt, or any Christian who's worth their salt, who's willing to go that direction, can do what we're doing. And I think that's what we're trying to, is like, there's a way to go about this. Boots on the ground. I mean, we are boots on the ground pastors who are trying to engage the people where they are, grassroots, right? Grassroots, and have these conversations. So we're not on a big national platform. We're not going to be on a national platform. We're just trying to engage. You don't know that? Well,
Lord might boost us up and put us on our own show.
He might do that. But our goal isn't entirely, I think, that. I think our goal is for Mayoshi and Ed and Jason and the others, and Terrence, for those folks who are listening to say, hey, maybe that's a way we can engage this culture. And we got that from us, you know.
Well, don't try to act like you don't see Mayashi's comment there down at the bottom. She's going to apologize for nothing because so you're endorsing my man Russell Moore, Russie Russ. And
Yes.
Russell Moore has some things maybe that you even said can be disagreeable.
Yeah.
Help us figure this out, Jason. Because I'll go ahead and just full disclosure, just put my cards on the table here. I would also endorse Russell Moore and some of the things that he has said, just like I would endorse John MacArthur and some of the things that he said, voting box, some of the things, Paul Wash, some of the things that he says. I actually don't know any of these people. They have never sat at my dinner table. They've never come to an Erskine music show. I don't know why. And as far as I know, they don't stream my music or help out in any way, shape, form, or fashion. However, lest we be like these Rudy Poots who are in our government, who when somebody makes a statement, when they're giving the State of the Union address, depending on what side you're on, they're either going to clap or you're just going to sit there like they didn't even say anything or look mad when they said something. Like you can make the statement, we believe that all Americans should be considered important. And then somebody will go, oh, I cannot believe they said that. It is just because it wasn't your side that said it.
Yeah.
And like there's certain things when Jason is talking about, hey, Russell Moore believes he's had him as a professor. He has spoken clearly to the gospel. He's spoken clearly. Why can't we as Christians be like that? Yeah, that guy. Yeah, we can agree with that. Because ultimately, and I'm just thinking, one of the things that hurts us in our American context is we're too American sometimes from the standpoint we only think about America and American Christianity, and our perspective is we color the rest of the world based on that. I can guarantee you if you're in Iran, I can guarantee you if you're in another country where there's completely different religions, completely different culture, you and Russell Moore are like, you are so close that you can hardly get any space to breathe. And so too with a lot of the people that we've talked about here, whether you agree with them by and large or not, if they believe the gospel, you are actually really close. And lest we be like people who are dividing over secondary and third tier things and making those more of an issue than they ought to be, which leads to legalism, I should say. We just need to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
I don't endorse everything that Jason has said in the entirety of his life. I don't endorse everything that I've said in the entirety of my life. I'm still trying to grow in the grace and knowledge of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, 2 Peter 3:18. So I'll just say that, just put that out there. Terrence got some suggestions as well.
Dr. Willie Jennings, Vince Bantu, and Ephraim Smith. I'm not familiar with those guys.
I'm more familiar with Ephraim Smith. So Terrence, since you're out there, it seems like a lot of people are tuning in earlier this morning. They got up and they're having their coffee with us, having this discussion. Maybe we need to not wait so long. Maybe we need to get our rears up on Saturday and start having a show earlier.
Maybe.
But anyway, can you just give us a couple of bookends for those authors and kind of what perspective they come from, if you can, Terrence? I know you're busy over there. All right. Much love, Mayashi. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye. Have a great day. Hope you're not mad at us. I hope that was a buy of you're busy and not a buy of you guys are idiots. But either way,
I'll tell you, Russell will get you in trouble. I wonder if she's speaking to if Russell is into critical race theory.
That's what she's responding to here.
Yeah, I think that's if I can be polite and just say, I think that's a bit of an over statement. I don't think he buys into CRT as holistically as he's been made out to. I think he's trying to walk the same road that I'm trying to walk here. I really don't care for critical race theory, but I'm trying to be open to what can I redeem? What can I was it Kevin Jones, redeem, reject, and
receive
and receive, and trying to use that kind of criteria. He has opened me up more to analyzing things that way first before I just outright say no. And I think Russell Moore is following a similar road. I think he's trying to say, look, before we just throw the baby out with the bathwater, let's make sure we do due diligence, and there are some things we need to look at. And remember, Russell Moore comes from Deep South. So, I mean, he knows. I think he's from Mississippi. I think
I was going to say, I think it's Mississippi.
Yeah. So, I mean, come on now. I mean, if anybody, and he's what, like in his 50s now, close to his 50s. So he was in Mississippi when Mississippi, and frankly, Mississippi is still kind of Mississippi. And so
he was in Mississippi when Mississippi was even more Mississippi.
I got family in Mississippi. My mom's from Mississippi originally, so it's not like I haven't been there and done that and had those conversations. So,
and he's a white guy, so I'm sure he flew under the radar, and people were very comfortable saying some things and doing some things around him that would not get reported and would not, create upheaval because hey, he's one of our guys.
So I think you need, again, you just don't see Russell Moore as buying completely into something. I've never seen him just do that. He's always been pretty level-headed. Again, as I've disagreed with things he's said, I'm like, oh my gosh, and tried to have conversations even on different things. I've never gotten the impression that he is just completely sold out to CRT. There's some things he's trying to work through. And I wouldn't say we know each other personally. I'm just saying that we've had interactions together, whether it was in class, whether it was on campus, when I've walked with him and talked with him from chapel to class, or I've engaged him on his blog, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And so, again, maybe a word that you'll hear a lot on this show when we talk about it is perspectives. There's a lot of different perspectives that people come from. And we were actually, Kelly and I were having this discussion last night. It's important to recognize that we all come from various perspectives. And here's where I might get myself in trouble with some people, but you took a chance, Station. I'll be willing to take a chance as well. There is a predominant perspective that is very white-centric, that essentially says from the onset of America, even until today, there's a way that white America has responded to issues. That's because of the volume of that, and because of the protection of that, the growth of that over the years, that has been endorsed as the right way to do things, or the right perspective for America. So then when you have other perspectives that then join the conversation, they join the conversation already at a lower tier. Like, we can't endorse them because they don't already have our perspective. And what I'm seeing happen these days is, even with critical race theory, I'm not a proponent of critical race theory. However, there is a perspective that says, and this is not what I'm doing, mind you, but when you bring the white perspective and put it on the same level as other perspectives that are out there, then the conversation automatically changes. And that makes some people really comfortable, in my estimation. That's why there's a lot of people who are not reacting, but I believe overreacting to critical race theory and overreacting to some of these conversations, because now all of a sudden Black and brown folks are giving a perspective on how they see reality and how they see solutions to some of these issues that have never before been issued before. We've never had to listen to those voices because they've been so minority, or they've been so disenfranchised. But now when we're hearing these voices, like, oh, no, we can't accept that because that's not what we're used to. Well, if it's something that's bad, okay, that's one thing. But if it's just something that you're reacting to because it's something you're not used to, I don't really see the issue there. And like you were saying, Jason, the ability to receive some things, even though you don't want to receive everything, that's the part of discernment, and that's the part of the Holy Spirit that I think Christians, we need to access in these days.
Yeah. No, that's why I think it'd be good to get Kevin Jones on here to talk, because he's even worked with his church and talked to his church about critical race theory, and I don't, Dr. Jones is not somebody I think be a proponent of everything that critical race theory offers, but he definitely has some great insight on some things that you can receive, reject, and redeem. And he just helps You think, and one of the things I like about Dr. Jones too is he doesn't tell you what to think. He leads you in a place to help you learn how to think, and you arrive. And as long as you can engage that conversation thoughtfully and carefully, and again, not just react to something new. I don't like this. This has changed, but this is something. Hey, wait a minute. I've thought through the implications of this, and then wheeling it through the Word of God, which I think Ed Niels is bringing up quite a bit in his comments about the Word of God is central. And I think if we can do that as Christians in the church, then we can have conversations where we don't agree entirely with critical race theory, but maybe we can start to see where some people are coming from, and maybe we can find a better solution through the gospel, mind you. And right now, it doesn't seem like those conversations are happening.
Yeah. And the reason we didn't throw ourselves in that conversation for vainglory to say, hey, we're on the level of all these other guys. But I think we're having a level of and a substance of conversation that a lot of people are not willing to have out there.
Yeah.
Because what we normally do is we just throw our atomic bombs at each other and we say, well, we're not going to listen to white voices, especially if we're brown minority, because they're racist. Well, what does that do for the conversation? How do we move anything forward there? Everybody that we talk to is a racist, and so therefore their voice is invalidated. On the other side, by just simply glossing over everybody and saying, oh, no, that's a different perspective of ours, so they must be involved in critical race theory. We don't have to listen to those voices. That's identity politics at its best. We don't have to listen to those voices. And so what does that do for the conversation? Let's try to, it's almost like sometimes we forgot what it's like to be a parent. Like, we don't endorse everything that our kids do. We try to figure out things that we can embrace and that we can endorse so that we can keep the conversation and the relationship going. That's the way it works in our families. That's the way that hopefully
works in our churches. That's where it works in our
churches. Good businesses should run this way to try to figure out what is the most helpful, and even with us planning a church, does church start at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, or the church, like, when you start to boil it down to its essence, there's a lot of grace in that, and just the cultural context of what makes sense in people's world, while still doing all the biblical functions of what it means to be a church. And so we're having to work through a lot of those issues as well. And it's a good exercise. If we're the type of people who are inflexible, like we've always gone to church like at 11 o'clock, and so that's what time church is, and we've become so entrenched in our tradition, then when somebody says, well, let's meet at 10:30, you're like, I know I've got a major problem with you because you said 10:30 and not 11. And I feel like we're there in too many regards. So anyway, Terrence has given us some good names that are up there, bibliography of sorts. Thank you for going to the work of doing that.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Christian imagination. That'd be kind of cool. Not that the other one would be cool, but I think I've thought a lot about that. The Christian and the Imagination. The Hip Hop Church by Dr. Smith. All right.
Now, full disclosure, Terrence, I know you're one of the contributors. I think you have a chapter in the Hip Hop Church. DJ Rock On. DJ Rock On. So, yeah, we definitely got to get that book. So we can read every one of T Nice's comments in there and be like, you said this on page 87. You still believe that?
That's good. That's good.
And then kind of what we were talking about there. Man. Black and brown folks been talking about deep theological topics and social issues and solutions. We've been in the game for a while, bro. We've been talking about these things for a while. It's just that, and this is kind of goes back to our conversation last week. I don't know what you're going to do if you're a white evangelical. Like, you can be upset about critical race theory all you want, spend our dollars, spend our conferences. I mean, we're at a cultural moment that I believe is akin to the Enlightenment. So things are changing, and the evangelical white-dominated voice is going to be lessening. Now, you will always have those people out there who can make, again, Jason, like we were talking about, they can make their entire ministry living based on being in opposition to critical race theory.
Yeah.
And that can be their platform. And so they will hang on to their power and their authority based on the fact that they're against whatever is going on in culture. And I've seen that time and time again. But what I believe is a way forward for us on this conversation is to figure out who in these minority communities is having helpful conversations, and then be able to enfranchise and partner in those conversations and look like we actually love one another and care for one another and are better together. I don't know. That's just one idea that Jason and I have had.
Mm-hmm.
What if we actually, minimize the things that we disagree upon, although we still disagree upon those, but we maximize the things that we agree upon, and then we advance those things for the good of the church and the hope of the gospel.
Yeah. And with the total assumption that we assume, and part of that is we never neglect Christ as Lord, only means salvation. We keep the majors, and the minors. So I know people are saying, well, what if they don't buy? I think, Mayoshi said people who are in the critical race theory are not Bible centric. Russell Moore is Bible centric, and he wouldn't be fully embracing CRT. But there are plenty of people out there who uphold to the majors of the gospel that we will not compromise on. Christ is Lord. You are saved by grace through faith alone, by grace alone, in Christ alone. And of course, those are the people we want to enfranchise. And so that's just, full assumption that's what we go off of, that
Mm-hmm.
we're not compromising the majors of the gospel. We will never compromise the
Never.
sufficiency of Scripture. That's right. That's what people might be scared of too. And I just don't think that, that to me is not a non-negotiable. That's one for you. And so we're having this conversation. We just make that assumption that that's where we are.
Yeah.
Where we're standing. So
good stuff. Well, we got to get off here today.
Yeah.
I apologize for nothing.
We will never compromise the gospel, never compromise our belief in the essentials of our faith. And that's what Jason and I are here to definitely agree upon in advance. As he preaches tomorrow, we'll be meeting house church style tomorrow as well.
Yeah.
And so our hope in the power of the gospel does not wane in the midst of any of the decisions that have been made this week or any week or any. We didn't even get to LeBron James tweets or anybody else that's out there.
Well, that might even be another conversation, because this whole Micaiah, was it Bryant, or the young lady who was shot in Columbus? I mean, that's a conversation all of itself, as that's working out, and the effects of when our sports figures or our cultural leaders take to social media to make assessments of things. And that, this is what happens when the word of God is not central to a culture, when the sermon is not central. You're going to it's going to fill a void. Somebody's going to talk. And and again, I have this love-hate relationship with LeBron. Like I think he's phenomenal in so many different ways, brilliant in so many respects. But just, if I was his PR person, I'd be like, oh, what are you doing? So,
hey, there's about 7 people. Scott, who I don't know if he joined us, Mayoshi, Terrence, Ed. I'm going to give you guys an email link. I'm going to give you guys an email link, and I want all of your heads down at the bottom of the screen. And when you guys have something to say it to my face. I think we got to get Terrence and we got to get Ed on the same show and let them, because we can have up to 10 people on the screen.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a hot mess. Tune in for the next disaster. That'll get some ratings. But no, you guys are funny down there.
Who is LeBron? I love it. Who's LeBron?
That reminds me of being in Africa, and I was doing a show somewhere, and it was literally about 700 kids under a tree at a school, and I was giving them greetings and everything, and I was like, "Hey, we came from America," and the missionary thought it would be cool for me to just use LeBron James. It's like, oh yeah, because everybody thinks if you're from America, you know all the American people, so I probably know LeBron. So I was like, he couldn't come today; they're in the playoffs, and so I came instead. Want to share some music with you. And they were just sitting there looking at each other like, Who's
Who's
LeBron?
LeBron?
I was like, don't worry about that guy. I'm here today. What's up? It's Erskine music time. Da-da! So, believe it or not, there are some people in the world who they don't know who LeBron is, and if he's not standing there in front of them, they don't care.
They don't care. That's right.
Maybe we should be like that. Maybe. There's a point that can be made in all of that. You know, Jason, you're going to preach your heart out tomorrow and minister and labor faithfully as you have for many, many years. LeBron can tweet and he's going to reach more people.
That's right.
Sorry to put this so bluntly, Ed Neal, but you have been faithful in gospel ministry for years. You tweet.
Yeah. Yep.
So we got to recognize the enlightenment age that we're in, the cultural moment that we're in. And, you know, we can be sourpusses about this, or we can figure out how to use the technology and how to use our voice, even though it might be marginalized to some extent, and it might be less of a voice, but to use our voice to convey truth, because it matters to everyone in whom that truth reaches, and to whom everyone who hears it. So anyway, let's get off the show before a fight breaks out. Fight. All right. God bless you, Jason.
Right, you too,
Thank
man.
you so much.
Yep.
Keep doing what you're doing.
All right.
Tell the good folks of Litchfield we said hello.
Come here. This is my little guy.
Oh.
Hey, so in case people are wondering, here's Erskine's namesake. No, put that down.
Little E.
Erskine, right here.
Little E.
Little E. Who's that? You see that? Is that Mr. Erskine? Yeah. He's shining.
Good morning.
Say
good morning, Elias.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, so sweet.
All right.
Yeah, you know we must be friends if he's naming his kids after me.
That's right. That's right. We name them after good men.
Yes. Well, I don't know about all that, but we at least are in love with Jesus and trying to point people to him.